All right, good morning. Happy Thursday. All right, we're trying this again. Happy Thursday. Welcome to today's tech layoff update. Big news in the last 24 hours is Amazon Web Services laying off under 200 people. Not a massive layoff, but it is affecting their Amazon Web Services division, which has been known to be a pretty lucrative part of the company. And maybe comes as a bit of a surprise, but also is affecting their retail technology division. So we'll get into a little bit more detail on that coming up, and then we'll just round things out with a article from Computer World that I thought was pretty thoughtful around the AI conversation in some of these layoffs and the considerations there, and some points that I definitely agree with and I think are more truthful in terms of AI actually playing a role in what's going on in the tech industry. I think it's been very overstated by many people who don't actually understand AI technologies and their current utility, as basically though that AI is now just fully replacing jobs in a lot of tech companies. So again, I don't think that is a fair analysis, so we'll get into a good article that I came across this morning covering that. But up first, we have some interesting news here from Reuters, or at least just a good sort of current take on things. U.S. layoffs reach 14-month high amid government tech cutbacks. So we'll just get into it here. So the U.S. layoff announcements rose 7% in March to the highest since January 2023. So 2023, separate from this, had, I think it was around 100,000 total cuts, which I don't think they get into this. This is from another source, but maybe they talk about this, so I shouldn't jump too far ahead. But anyways, layoff announcements rose 7% in March to the highest since January 2023. That is led by technology and government sector job eliminations. The government sector job eliminations are primarily school districts, it would seem. So there's been a ton of cutbacks, very much focused on school districts, some higher education. I think the University of Texas just had a pretty large cutback, along with some other universities, but most of it has been K through 8 school districts all over the country, in major cities, and across many different states as well. They've been having a lot of cutbacks and reductions in staff. That includes teachers. So my guess is that's what they're connecting the government layoff, government sector job eliminations to. And so just continue reading here. Though cuts announced year to date are down 5% from a year ago amid a still strong job market, a report out on Thursday showed. Job cut announcements increased to 90,309 in March from 84,638 in February. Outplacement firm Challenger Gray and Christmas said on a yearly basis, the level increased slightly by 0.7% from the 89,703 number of cuts announced in March 2023. Technology industry continued to outpace other sectors in job cuts through the first quarter of this year, announcing 14,224 in March and 42,442 since the year began. The U.S. government was the top job cutter last month, accounting for 36,044 announced layoffs, the highest since September 2011. That's a big deal because September 2011 was, I would say, still sort of peak recession. That was kind of, I would say, I think it was sort of like 2009 into early 2011. So this is sort of the, I guess, as things were starting to pick back up by the end of 2011. But I would say 2009 through the very end and into early 2011, that was sort of peak great financial crisis recession period. So just past that low point was the last time the government had this many cuts. So that's a pretty significant difference, I would say. So those cuts were occurring largely within veteran affairs and the U.S. Army, which is interesting. Through the first 3 months of the year, companies have announced a little over 250,000 layoffs, down from 270 in last year's first quarter. Excuse me. Another indication of a job market that continues to hold up in the face of high interest rates. A report from payroll processor ADP on Wednesday indicated a greater than expected 184,000 private sector jobs were created last month, and the government on Friday is expected to report about 200,000 payroll jobs overall were added in March. Employers most frequently cited cost-cutting and restructuring efforts as reasons for job eliminations. Many companies appear to be reverting to a do more with less approach. This is exactly like Great Financial Crisis, 2008, 2009. For those of you who were in your careers, I was basically just out of college when that recession hit. And I remember right off the bat going into broadcasting, which is where I began initially. My sort of first career was in broadcast news and broadcasting. And I was working for a local major affiliate. But within the first couple of years, they were doing this incredible condensing of responsibilities where they eliminated a lot of primary positions. It used to be that you would, you're a reporter who goes and does live reports, you would go out with a cameraman, right? So it would be sort of this two-person job anytime you went out to do a live report. Well, they basically axed that model, and they gave all of the reporters their own, small cameras. And of course, that's a kind of a vestige of like the last 50 years of broadcast news, where you literally had camera equipment that weighed 50, 60 pounds in some cases back in the day. And you literally needed a second person just to even be able to handle the camera. So obviously that's not the case anymore. You could do, a decent broadcast news experience with a small handy camera. So, but it was that same mentality, just incredible reductions in people and personnel and a condensing of responsibilities. But then at the same time, they were doing a lot of these big CapEx investments. They completely upgraded the broadcast switcher system, bought the most high-end expensive kind of version of that on the market. So we went to this full HD capable broadcasting system. It was a complete end-to-end change. The entire studio got remodeled, all new equipment, all new boards, all new monitoring, everything, new antennas, new communication systems, all of it, right, had to be upgraded for HD technology. So it was confusing, because you're getting rid of people, but then you're making these $1 million+ investments in these CapEx items. Anyways, that's just my little personal story there related to that, but it sounds very similar to that kind of period of time. So many companies appear to be reverting to a do more with less approach. While technology continues to lead all industries so far this year, several industries, including energy and industrial manufacturing, are cutting more jobs this year than last. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of that. So let's dive into the one moment here. Let me jump back over here. Let's jump into the Amazon cuts from NPR here. Amazon is cutting hundreds of jobs in its cloud computing unit, AWS. Amazon said Wednesday, which is yesterday, that it's cutting hundreds of jobs in its cloud computing unit, AWS, as part of a strategic shift. The company will trim a few hundred roles in the team that overlooks technology. I feel like it was not a few hundred roles yesterday. It was less than that. So I don't know. I missed that, or maybe it's changed. The company's trimming a few hundred roles in the team that overlooks technology for physical stores, a move that comes just a day after Amazon said it was ditching the Just Walk Out technology in its U.S. grocery stores. I also read that was actually kind of a scam. These automated stores where you take something off the shelf, put it in your basket, and walk out. I was reading something that was always a not truly automated thing, that there were support centers in India where people were just actually monitoring the individuals. So I don't know exactly how that would work, but basically, I guess they're just watching camera feeds and they see somebody come in and it senses who that person is. It knows their account based on the Bluetooth connection, right, to their phone, or the, whatever wireless connectivity their device has to the store in order to communicate their account information. So that would pop up. They would see that, track that alongside that individual as they walked around the store. But then as they were picking items, these humans in India were actually adding them to the account for purchase. So not totally sure how that all worked, the actual end-to-end process of that. But basically it wasn't fully automated. There were literally a group of support staff monitoring individuals as they walked into the stores and adding things to their basket, to then be charged as they walked out. In addition to the physical stores technology team, Amazon said it is cutting several hundred roles in the AWS sales, marketing, and global services organization. Most of those cuts are related to business changes in AWS training and certification programs, as well as sales operations. The tech giant said it was also making cuts elsewhere so it can invest in other business priorities. These decisions are difficult but necessary as we continue to invest, hire, and optimize resources to deliver innovation for our customers, Amazon spokesperson Duncan Neesham said in a statement. So these layoffs follow other layoffs that happened to Amazon and its subsidiaries in this year, which we talked a little bit about that. I think that was about a month ago now. A couple months ago. In January, the company cut several hundred positions across its Prime Video and MGM Studios unit. The same month, Twitch, which Amazon owns, the popular social media platform owned by Amazon. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The article says it all here. Let me just read. They laid off more than 500 jobs in a bid to save on costs. The online audiobook and podcast service Audible also laid off about 5% of its workforce. So I think, too, there's something to be said about a lot of these businesses that rely on advertising. So Twitch is all just advertising, right? So you have creators on there that are streaming, creating content for their audiences, their subscribers. You have direct subs too, right? So whatever it is, you pay $2 a month to watch individual streamers or however that model works. But then for the vast majority of viewers on that platform, right, they're just being shown ads. And much like in 2008 during the Great Financial Crisis, you had a huge contraction on the advertising side of things, right? Ad money all but disappeared. And I lived through that, again, working in broadcast news, because broadcast news, a traditional legacy business model that is solely fueled by advertising dollars. So we saw an incredible reduction in ad revenue, which just directly was the bottom line, right? That's all the money that the business uses to operate. So I think similarly, there's something to be said about some of these tech products, social media products that are all driven and fueled by advertising. People stop advertising, right? It's a very easy item to eliminate when you already know prices are high and going up, and people will just stop spending as a result of that because their dollars don't go as far. They stop spending. They budget better. They reduce that. As a company, I don't need to be advertising as much, right? We just have to play defense now. So a lot of advertising revenue disappears. I'm sure there's some anticipation of that occurring, which leads to, why platforms like Twitch would, which again generates tons of money. I mean, they've always made a lot of money. It's always been a profitable product, but they continue to have to make cuts like that. So Amazon says it will continue to hire in priority areas. The company currently has thousands of AWS job openings. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It says it'll try to find internal opportunities for employees whose roles are impacted. Yeah, they always say that. Don't know how true that ends up being. Let's see here. Where else are we? Let me jump over here. So I came across this other article from somebody at Computer World that I thought was a good take on this AI conversation related to job loss and layoffs in the tech industry and such. So let me jump over to that real quick. So again, from Computer World, Stephen Von Nichols, great take on things here, opinion piece. So he writes, tech stocks go ever higher, but how much of that is due to real gains and how much of it is because of layoffs done in the foolish hope that generative AI tools can replace workers? I fully agree with that. The foolish hope that generative AI tools can replace workers. At some point, generative AI tools will be really good. and the absolute bottom of the barrel operations of some of these companies will be able to be replaced by AI. If you are a customer support rep, we are probably going to reach a point very soon where that job is fully automatable, or at the very least, you will need a fraction of the size of that support staff. So I'm thinking, all of the service desk, customer service support in Bangalore, southern India, probably is going to be hit pretty hard pretty quickly, if they're not already. I don't really track overseas tech industry events occurring. But I could see that happening pretty quickly. When you call your credit card company just because you have to deal with escalated issue or some, fraud or something like that, where you kind of have to talk to somebody, right? That's sort of a requirement. You can't just go through the automated online portals for some of those more advanced problems or more sensitive problems with something like a credit card or a debit card. I think there will be a point where you can just have a very small number of people monitoring a bot that is interacting with people and handling those more sensitive cases in the near future here. Like, it will reach a point where the velocity of those tools is actually sufficient, in my opinion. We'll see. The article continues. So Stephen continues here. I'd been writing about the tech industry for years before the dot-com crash of 2000. That bubble popped because of irrational exuberance around about how the internet would change everything. Hundreds of thousands of tech jobs were lost. That's true. A lot of people thought the internet, at that time, they thought the internet was going to be this particular thing that just immediately eliminated retail. And obviously we've seen that took much longer. We've seen a lot of successful retail businesses start and be successful since 2000. Smaller, right? Not necessarily like multinational, but nobody knew what Lululemon was before the year 2000. And I don't know when they were founded, but you get my point. Today, businesses are going crazy over Gen AI, which will change everything, and companies are already firing employees because they think bots can replace people. The, quote, smart money was right and terribly wrong, both then and now. Fully agree. It's totally true. In the 2000s, savvy tech business people were correct that the internet would change everything about the economy, but they were way too early. People quickly poured money into early e-commerce businesses such as Pets.com, Webvan, and eToys, only to watch their investments vanish. So did everyone's job who relied on these businesses to keep a roof over their heads. For every Amazon that survived the crash and became a financial giant, a dozen other companies vanished from sight and memory. That is totally true. And yeah, we all talked, or I think Pets.com was like a case study. It's like a business school case study on irrational exuberance with new tech and new technologies, because they had I forget the number now, but a pretty outrageous amount of investment into Pets.com, and then it completely tanked, right? And it's similar for like eBay, right? eBay has survived, and we've talked about them a little bit, but obviously eBay was like a great example of well executed early internet business idea. And then, to be honest, they actually were struggling quite a bit early on. And then the CEO at the time, whose name I'm forgetting, but he talked to Andrew Chen in his book, The Cold Start Problem, about introducing the buy it now feature. And that saved eBay. So that alone totally changed the game for the company and basically saved them, because a lot of people were kind of actually getting annoyed and tired of the pure auction model. So buy it now was great. The sellers loved it because they could sort of get some assurances and guarantees, with sale price. But it also just meant people could, maybe spend more to just quickly purchase the item, take advantage of the whole point of e-commerce, which is, speed and effectiveness and efficiency in purchasing. So, and then, the PayPal merge, obviously, PayPal's success and being a viable platform for payments obviously helped them tremendously and streamlined the purchasing process, all that. So, there is a bit of a motto, you could say, in Silicon Valley here of right now, eBay is where tech workers go to die. So they are like on no one's radar in terms of like current today companies you would want to go work for as a tech worker. So I understand they still have good revenues, profits. They're globally, their sales are strong. But as a brand, obviously they've lost their luster. And obviously they're not really on anyone's radar anymore, sadly. You have way better options now, like OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace. Obviously these have been they're much better platforms that clearly work and don't really screw you over on commissions the way that many other, or the way that eBay has. eBay's commissions are insane. So I stopped using them years ago just because of that. It felt very imbalanced, the amount of money they take for a single item being sold. So where did I leave off here? Last year saw the tech industry's worst wave of layoffs since the dot-com crash of 2001. In January 2023 alone, more than 100,000 tech workers were laid off. Yep, just talked about that. According to data from layoffs.fyi, so far this year's level of cuts haven't been as high, but they keep coming and coming, and, well, you get the idea. At the same time, tech company stocks are doing better than ever, with stock markets reaching ever new heights. Businesses are insanely profitable. Look at NVIDIA, right? Yeah, NVIDIA's doing really great right now. But we'll see. That could just also be some more irrational exuberance around the current AI buzz. And yes, there is a very objective advantage that the NVIDIA chip offers if you're getting into, intense compute businesses like AI, anything to do with true AI. But I do think it's limited. I think there's only going to be so many companies who are going to build products and services that need NVIDIA chips, right? So crypto, that's a whole thing over here. But, I think that'll probably flatten out in terms of the companies coming in and building from scratch tools and systems and products that rely on actually setting up the NVIDIA systems, like using NVIDIA GPUs for compute power. But really what it'll be is there'll be a handful of big companies that buy up a lot of that stuff, set up AI tools and services, and make them available for a subscription. And then all of these other smaller companies will just license that compute power or, use it to fuel their specific product and service that leverages that actual core AI system. But it's going to be, the amount of money and human capital and skill needed to manage a AI-based compute server ecosystem infrastructure is massive. So it's not going to be a thing where like thousands of different companies are going to start to jump into building core AI systems from scratch and buying NVIDIA chips. So again, it'll still be a very narrow group of very specialized companies with an incredible amount of capital using those chips. So it'll be interesting to see over time just how important NVIDIA is in the big picture there. Nevertheless, top tech businesses such as Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce keep cutting tens of thousands of employees. Many of them loudly and proudly proclaim there will be more layoffs. While there are some rational reasons, including the persistence of high interest rates and continued delusions that a recession is possible. Continued delusions that a recession is possible. I don't know why that's a continued delusion. That's still a very real possibility as far as I can tell. A lot of this involves irrational short-term thinking. For example, the stock market currently rewards companies for their cost discipline. This is another way of saying they're reducing costs by firing people. Many of those recent job cuts can directly be attributed to AI. Some companies such as Meta aren't even trying to hide it. Mark Zuckerberg recently said Meta had to lay off employees and control costs so we can invest in long-term ambitious visions around AI. They had to do that? I doubt that. This is what the author says here. Many businesses also make no bones about their plans to replace Jay Stafford with iRobot. Clever. I like it. IBM CEO Arvind Krishna said IBM wouldn't be hiring while it shifted to AI. Last month, IBM cut marketing and communications jobs, and while it didn't say this was due to AI, really, did execs even need to? Okay, got it. One of the most popular mistakes companies are making in their fast embrace to AI is to replace writers and with chatbots. Yeah, but I mean, that's, we've all used ChatGPT at this point. It's pretty good. At the very least, you need half the number of writers, as before, because you can just output decent documentation or written information quickly. Like, you could just, one person can do 2 or even 3 times the amount of output with just pure text written form deliverables, right? So that does make sense. Personally, I know somebody at IBM whose background is science-based background, research science, I believe bioscience. I could be wrong about it. But anyway, science-based background. And IBM has pushed them, or basically retrained them into Python development. And as we know, it's because a lot of the focus on AI and those tools and systems. So pretty big. That's a pretty big shift, right? So they're pushing a lot of their different science-based divisions into AI type operations, including teaching former scientists to code in Python. Interesting. Other companies are more coy about job cuts. UPS and BlackRock, for example, cut staffers and admitted Gen AI was making their companies more productive, but didn't explicitly draw the line between job losses and the much hyped technology. Big banks such as Goldman Sachs have predicted AI could replace the equivalent of 300 million full-time jobs by 2030. They're far from the only ones predicting radical job changes in the offing. They're wrong here. Oh, but they are wrong here. Here's why. Gen AI tools are not close to being ready to replace jobs yet. Amen. Preach it. That's absolutely true. They're not ready. I mean, for the most part, they're not. Though I can think of some CEOs whose seats could be better filled with AI. That's especially true for those whose first priority is to boost their bonuses rather than advance their businesses. Yep, I agree with that. I've been working with Gen AI for a while now. I've used it all. I've used all the major platforms, and none are ready to replace anyone's work yet. I mean, replace anyone's work yet? I don't know about that. Again, I think just like your front line, front of house, customer service worker, customer support, phone line representative, you could maybe see where current generative AI could replace that job. And at the very least, you could drastically reduce the number of people doing that job and have half the number of people overseeing some kind of bot system, and making sure, obviously, that customers are being routed properly or whatever. So, but yeah, I think generally when people are talking about AI replacing coders and software engineers, that's just not happening. So it's nowhere near, the Gen AI piece is nowhere near that yet. So anyways, the article continues here. Gen AI simply isn't ready yet. Just like the internet of 1999, the Gen AI tools of 2024 will eventually get there. But in the meantime, I predict, as Gartner would put it, we are heading quickly to the trough of delusionment. That's where the initial burst of excitement over a new technology runs out and everyone realizes the reality isn't close to what we all dreamed it would be. So yeah, like I've been kind of talking about with AI is going to still require the absolute most gifted, talented C language and Python language developers to actually be sort of furthered and elaborated on in its current state. What we have, and what a lot of the companies doing, quote, AI, they are leveraging core AI technologies that somebody else built and is owning and managing. And then on top of that, there's the whole compute piece, right? And a lot of people don't understand that. You need, and again, why NVIDIA is doing so well, or at least is expected to do really well in the near future here, is that they're creating the actual hardware to power these AI systems, right? And again, it takes very specialized skill in terms of software development and hardware development for computers to create core AI systems that can then be used for very specific applications. And the vast majority of businesses will essentially just leverage the 10 or maybe less companies that are actually doing core AI development work and also owning the compute power for that. So it's very similar to, like, again, we talked about Amazon Web Services and the cuts they're making. Amazon Web Services is this massive machine of a business for Amazon, but they own all of this core computing power and data centers and all of the actual backbone that all the other companies are basically leveraging in order to do their business and serve up their products. So you have billion-dollar SaaS product companies where all of their stuff is hosted by Amazon Web Services. And what was it, like 2 years ago, you had that huge outage at AWS that like took out like 25% or like a third of the internet, because most companies use Amazon Web Services to run their products, to host and run all of their products and services. If it's a software-based product or an e-commerce platform or whatever, they're hosting the site and running the payment systems, all of that. So similarly with AI technology, it's gonna be very similar to that situation. You're gonna have maybe a half dozen companies, less than 10 companies, who own the true AI brain and the LLMs and the taxonomies that fuel all of that actual utility. And then the other 20,000 companies are just going to be licensing that or paying a fee to leverage that AI brain. So it will follow a very similar model to what we see today, where the big players can set up massive data centers, buy the latest and greatest NVIDIA chips, train these AI models, and own the actual utility of that AI model. So anyways, some great points here from Steven at Computer World. Good article. I agree with a lot of the perspective here. And generative AI is not really at a place of replacing things. So if that's really what CEOs are doing in terms of these layoffs, if their whole focus or their motivation for doing some of these layoffs is like, they're getting advice from senior engineering people or whoever about how great generative AI is. So, within a couple years, we can make a full transition over to those systems and we can start making cuts now. I think that is going to be bad advice for some people. And I'm just speculating. I'm not saying that that's what these CEOs are saying, is they're getting ready to, integrate those systems, but they're making a bunch of cuts now. But you could imagine a world where maybe at least some of these companies are probably being, leadership are being given these ideas and insights about how AI is, what it is, and how it can be used. And it's probably not, fully baked thought processes, but time will tell. But much like what the article kind of alludes to here, I think, you're going to have a lot of similar decisions, big decisions being made in hopes of AI being something that it probably won't be. And a lot of these companies are going to suffer as a result of that, or have to make really quick, panicky decisions in order to, refocus because they made a bad call today. Alrighty, well, that's going to do it for a quick little update this morning. Thanks for joining, and subscribe, like. We just continuing to track and follow tech industry layoffs and the kind of evolution of what is occurring in the industry right now. I think this is a pinnacle moment overall, where I think we're going to continue to see a lot more layoffs this year within the tech industry in particular. But I do think we are moving into another pivotal milestone of, the evolution of computer science with this AI stuff. So, it'll be very interesting to see what the modern technology landscape looks like in even like 5 more years from now, and how it